Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir.
Right. Yeah. Involved. Please mute your microphones and also turn off your video cameras. Okay. Please turn off your cameras and mute your yeah. Mute, right. Okay. So quickly let us. Today we will be discussing the translation of the Bible, which is from Unit 1 of, or Unit 2 of Paper 2.
Vishnu.
Am I audible? Okay? Is it okay now?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Right. Now, see, when you, I've just gone through your instructive material here, and there are places where, there are typographical errors and some factual, errors. So, I will be indicating them so that you can, if you want, you can correct. So, this is to clarify things again. This is paper 2, unit 2, right? Translation of the Bible. Now this particular concept is very, very important to understand both the language and literatures in English. So, can you see my presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, coming to the context of the translation, etymology, yesterday I was explaining to you, is the study of the origin of words. Okay? Now, somebody is presenting. Aisha is presenting. Aisha, please turn off your camera. And white screen will broadcast.
Please, Asha. Please. Requesting your phone recording right now. Please.
Who is this? Excuse me, somebody is, presenting something. Please stop it. And please mute yourself, all of you. Somebody is presenting, please. Can you please stop presenting? Excuse me, can you see my presentation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Somebody else also is presenting. Who is presenting?
We can't see your presentation, sir.
Aisha is presenting, sir.
Yeah, please ask Aisha to, I've already asked her to not present. Maybe I'll have to,
Aisha, please stop presenting.
I'm trying to remove her from here, but it's not happening. Yeah.
Now we are able to see, sir.
Right. Anyway, please, inform this to all who are participating in this class that, it will take away our time. We are hard pressed for time and these kind of things will interfere. Anyway, etymologically, the word Bible comes from biblion in Greek, which means simply a book. So the Bible, coming from the Greek word biblion, meaning book, and in fact, again, the word comes from etymologically the Greek word for papyrus. Papyrus is, you all know that in the Egyptian.
Sorry to disturb you, sir. We are unable to see the screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, we are unable to see.
Yes, sir, we are unable to see the screen, sir.
What should I do about this? But he's presenting and I'm not able to. Excuse me, what's her name? Aisha? Aisha, can you please stop presenting? I'm not able to remove her also. I don't know why this is happening.
I think Aisha left her laptop for recording and just left over, I think, sir.
And that's, but this is bad, right? Because I'm not able to do anything here. It shows the option of remove from meeting, but thank God. Yeah. It's gone now, I think. Right. So, just bear with me for a minute, please. And Venkata, please turn off your video, your cameras, please. Please turn off your video. Now, yeah. You are able to see it now, right? Okay?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So now the word
Yes, sir.
in Greek, biblos. Now you can see this in Greek alphabets. It's simple. It's a beta, iota, beta, lambda, omega, and omicron, and again sigma. So biblos means papyrus, from which comes the word paper. Now the Bible is a collection of books. At least canonically you have 66 canonical texts, 39 from the Old Testament and 27 from the New Testament, and also some books from Apocrypha. Now in Apocrypha, the word Apocrypha means the collection of those texts or a group of texts which are not considered to be, part of the main scriptures. They are considered not to be divinely inspired. So they are called apocryphal books. This comes later in our discussion of various other translations. Now the problems of translation of the Bible are many. One is, it's not one book, but it's a collection of texts which are written over millennia, meaning at different points of time. So some are written in the, in the common era, that is CE, and some are written before the common era, that is BCE. So texts written over centuries or across time. Second, there is no one particular writer, because it's a collection of letters, manuscripts. Excuse me, Mr. Venkata, please stop your camera. Now, texts written by different writers, beginning from Moses, of the first 5 books of the, beginning Pentateuch, there are the 5 books, to John's Revelation. So, texts written by different writers, prophets, kings, judges, apostles. So, and they are also written, these materials are written in different languages: Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic. And the texts also are from various styles. They are written as histories, you will find genealogies, there is poetry, there is wisdom literature, and there are prophecies. Excuse me, and also songs, apocalyptic literature, biographical literature, and also travel narratives. So you can understand that this is a very diverse collection of texts which are given the title Bible. Now this diversity poses challenges for translators. Are we clear till here?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
If you want, you can take a snap of this so that you can use it later. Now when we are studying the translation of the Bible, we are studying about the impact of the translation on English language, culture, and literature. So these are the texts. You can just quickly note down these titles, and they are very useful in aiding an understanding of the literary impact, the cultural and linguistic impact of the Bible. So David Crystal, who worked extensively on linguistics, David Crystal's Begat, Harold Bloom, The Shadow of a Great Rock, a literary appreciation of King James Bible. David Norton, now this is very important, David Norton's History of English Bible as Literature. C.S. Lewis, some of you are familiar with C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, Narnia, Chronicles of Narnia and all that. Lewis was a scholar of medieval and Renaissance literature at Cambridge and Oxford. And very importantly, somebody can read the last entry that I put here. Eugene Nida.
God's word in man's language, formal and dynamic equivalence.
Thank you. Eugene Nida is a very important linguist and translation theorist. Those of you who know a little bit of translation studies would have definitely heard his name, and you can remember this name when you are thinking of translation studies. So Eugene Nida, God's word in man's language, wherein he talks about formal equivalence and dynamic equivalence. That is, I'll come to that later. Now, why and when translation? Now, if we go to translations that appeared before Saint Jerome, Jerome's translation is considered to be the very important translation into Latin. Before Jerome translated in the 4th century, you have Ethiopian, Syriac, Arabic, and Coptic translations of the Bible. Now, the church position, the Roman Catholic Church position regarding translation was very, very conservative. They did not allow the translation. So the whole history of translation is also embedded in the political controversies of different periods. So you must understand that the translation of the Bible took place in different times, in different political contexts. So there is always a kind of a contest or a kind of a a struggle in translation. And Reformation, yesterday we talked about Reformation, Martin Luther in the early 16th century. So Reformation did give a lot of impetus to translation. Now, quickly take a look at this. Anyone can read it? Quickly, please.
Sir, what would the pronunciation be for the word?
Septuagint.
Sorry?
Septuagint. Septuagint.
The Septuagint.
Yeah, Septuagint. Yeah.
The Septuagint. The earliest translation from the Hebrew into Greek.
Ptolemy II.
Ptolemy II of the Egypt, 4th century BC. For Greek-speaking diaspora, Alexandrian Jews.
Yeah. Well, Latin. Yeah. Thank you. 70 the number of translators. Obviously, please unmute yourself. Okay, I'll thank you. Now, the Septuagint is the earliest translation which took place from the Hebrew into Greek. Now, you must understand that the language of the Bible is originally you have these many texts, a collection of texts which were written in Hebrew, Greek, and in some cases Aramaic also. So the earliest translation was from the Hebrew into Greek during the time of Ptolemy. Ptolemy was the king of Egypt. Now, in the 4th century BC, because this translation was made for the diaspora. Is the screen not being displayed again?
Yes, sir, we can see your screen.
Yeah, but I get some chats if some people are requesting me to.
No, sir, like we can see it as usual.
Okay, right. So now, this translation was made for diasporic Jews in Alexandria. Now, where is Alexandria? You all know Alexandria is the northern part of Egypt. Okay? So, northern part of Egypt is Alexandria. So, Jews who were in Alexandria, they were Greek-speaking Jews. They were no longer speaking Hebrew, which was their, ancient language. So, they needed a translation so that they could use it. So, Ptolemy II, it is said that he invited 72 actually, but 70 doesn't bother. 72 scholars from Jerusalem, and they prepared a translation of the many parts of the Old Testament which considers, which covers the Torah and other texts. Okay, so the Greek-speaking diaspora was in need of a translation. The word Septuaginta in Latin means 70. So this, are we clear about the Septuagint? It is the earliest translation from Hebrew into Greek. This forms the basis of many other translations today. Now I suggest pictures, the Hebrew Pentateuch. Pentateuch refers to the 5 books, first 5 books which are attributed to Moses. Now this is a manuscript from the 4th century BC. It's from the prophet Habakkuk. Okay, the Dead Sea Scrolls, again a part of that. Now this is Codex Vaticanus. Now we come to this, Jerome. Saint Jerome is considered to be the first major translator of the Bible. That's why now United Nations celebrates September 30th as International Translation Day. Some of you know it, some of you might not. 30th September happens to be the feast day. So, feast day of Saint Jerome. So it's in honor of the translators. Now Jerome went to Pope Damasus, sent him to Jerusalem to study Hebrew and make a translation of Bible from Hebrew into Latin. Now this is called the Vulgate. The Vulgate, 382 AD. This is the first translation into Latin, and this has reference in all other translations. So this continued to play a very important role in the history of the church till the Reformation. So this was the translation that was relied upon. This is called the Vulgate, or it is also called Jerome's Bible. The word Vulgate simply means ordinary, common. The word vulgar comes from the word vulgus, okay, in Latin, which means ordinary. So this was a language, this was into a language which was supposed to be understood, okay, Jerome. This is Jerome's translation. It is a manuscript from the 8th century, okay, non-Latin translations, Coptic, hieroglyphs, okay. Now when you come to the English translations, we need to go to the Gothic translation, because as you know that English is a Germanic language. It descends from Germanic, okay, primitive Germanic, High Germanic, okay, then Low Germanic. So Gothic is part of the Germanic group. So Bishop Ulfilas translated into Gothic. This is very important. This is the Gothic translation. And then when the Anglo-Saxon tribes, the Angles, the Saxons and the Utes, came in the 5th century AD to the islands called Britain. Now, there were translations made, not full-fledged translations, but they were, adaptations, there were summaries, there were reflections, okay, there were glosses. And these are the earliest translations which came before the major translations which appeared in the 14th and 15th and 16th century. So Lindisfarne's Gospels, Northumberland, Aldred's Gloss, the oldest English translation is Aldred's Gloss. This is into Anglo-Saxon. Now Anglo-Saxon is what we call Old English. Now I want you to understand that don't use the word Old English for Shakespeare or Milton. Old English refers to the language which existed from 5th century up till 9th century, 9th, 10th century AD in England. That is called Old English. So Chaucer is Middle English. Shakespeare is early modern English. Am I making things clear?
Yes, sir.
When you say Old English, you are referring to the Anglo-Saxon. You are referring to 5th century to, almost 10th century or 1011 till the Norman Conquest in 1066. So these are the earliest translations. So don't think that translation began with Wycliffe. No, there were many other translations before. Now we come to Wycliffe. Now Wycliffe's Bible. What does the word see mean? Anyone here can take a guess? See means, historians use this
Maybe century.
Century would come later, right? If it is 1375 after the death of Christ would be no. C refers to circa. C-I-R-C-A. Circa in Latin means around, about. So this date is not definite. Somewhere around 1375, that is the meaning. Whenever you find a small lowercase c before a date, that means that is a probable date. Good, thank you. Yeah, it is a probable date. So now 1375 is the probable date of Wycliffe's Bible, okay? And this is from the manuscript from the British Library. Now the British Library is available online. You can take a virtual tour of the library, so nothing stops you. So if you can see that, I am just trying to read it here. Now this is the 14th century. Now in the beginning, okay, was the Word. The Word was at God. So this is the translation of Wycliffe. We'll come to Wycliffe now. Hey, can anyone read this quickly for me?
Yes, sir. Wycliffe's scholastic philosopher, professor at Oxford, was a guide coach rather than the known translator of the era of Reformation. Lollard's Mutlers considered heretical translation, anti-clerical papacy, monasticism. He acted against church riches. Early reformer influenced John Huss. Peasants' Revolt 1381, radical clerk John Paul Weiler. Translation from Latin Vulgate, mostly by John Purvey. E. 1385, declared heretic. 1415, exeunt. 1428.
Thank you, ma'am. somebody says that I can't see anything. Can you see this presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The very fact that, one of you could read it, there's somebody, Gracie, says that you can't see. Then how come that some are able to see? I'm not being selective, right? We can see. Yeah. So please, you might have to do something at your end, right? So again, we can't. Oh God, what's happening? Yeah. Maybe you try to do something at your end. Okay.
Maybe their camera is off, sir. That's the reason they can't see.
Does that work that way? Yeah. Try from your end. Okay. Now, Wycliffe was a scholastic philosopher at Oxford, and he, in fact, was an institution by himself. He may not have translated everything, okay, but he definitely inspired many of his followers to translate. So, and he's called the Morning Star of English Reformation, because before the Reformation came to England, in the early 16th century, now you have Wycliffe talking about the power of the Pope, and he was anti-clerical, he was against the priests and against the Pope, influence of Pope on the spirituality of the people. So now they were followers of Wycliffe. They were called as Lollards, and Lollard movement was also a very revolutionary movement in England. It was put down, and they were called Lollards because they were mumblers. They were considered heretical. Most of them were Franciscans. Okay. Now he was an early reformer, preached against the amassing of wealth by the bishops and the priests. So he was against church riches. He influenced John Huss. Now see, Peasants' Revolt of 1381 is a very important landmark in English history. Wat Tyler's revolution, where the peasants marched towards London and then laid siege to the Tower of London and also captured it for the first time. So a very radical kind of a movement that Wycliffe influenced. Now, the translations were not from Hebrew and Greek, but they were from Latin Vulgate. That is, they were translations from Jerome's Bible, and most of the translations were done under the supervision of John Purvey. He died in 1385. He was declared a heretic. Heretic is somebody who says something which is against the mainline or orthodox beliefs of any religion. So he was declared a heretic, and then he was already dead in 1385. So his body was exhumed, meaning his body was dug out in 1428. He was burned, again, and then dismembered, and it was scattered over different parts of India.
So here, what is the deed?
He died. I used the short form. He died 1385. He died of a heart stroke.
Okay, sir.
There are many fanciful stories that he was executed, and no, he was not executed. Okay? Now, Wycliffe's Bible refers to not one translation, but it is an effort or translation happened for almost 20 years. Okay. Now, there are two versions of the Wycliffe Bible. Okay, and just a second. Well, early and late, and this shows a stage in the development of the vernacular. Vernacular means regional languages apart from Latin. Okay. Well, from the Latin, there were sometimes literal translations, but later the translations, if you can have a look at it, Psalm 33, okay, Dominus regit me et nihil mihi, there is now this translated into Lord governs me and nothing shall me want, is a literal translation. Now you must understand that Latin has a particular syntax, word order, and English being using a Germanic language as another word order. Okay, so yeah, these are the problems of translation. I'll quickly go through this. Some of the important aspects of Wycliffe's translation, that the later version is more readable. Okay, and yeah, Wycliffe in the preface to the translations talks about the problems of translation and also the purpose of translation. I'll just read it quickly. With common charity to save all men in our realm whom God will have saved. The best translating is out of Latin into English. Translate after the meaning and not only after the words. Now he was basically referring to the dynamic equivalence that Eugene Nida was talking about later in the early 20th century. So Wycliffe's translation is the first important translation in English. Okay. Now then Reformation happened. Then we talked about Martin Luther and how Martin Luther himself wanted the scriptures to be understood by common people, not merely the people who are in the monasteries and seminaries, not the priests and the clergy, but everyone should be able to read the scriptures. So he translated first New Testament in German from Greek. He was not using Latin. Vulgate of Jerome, please. You must keep this thing in mind to get the story straight. So from German, from Greek, he translated into German in 1522. Then the complete Bible was available in 1534. This was a translation which influenced many translators in Europe, including William Tyndale. Now, Reformation spurred translation activity, meaning Reformation, gave a lot of, Philip, F-I-L-L-I. Philip means encouragement to translation activity. What was the purpose of the translation? Can anyone quickly give me a response so that I can move?
To understand in their own language.
Good. Yeah, thank you. That will do. Now this is the 1522. This is available in the British Museum Library, so you can just look at Luther's translation, 1522. This is the 1534 Luther's Bible, okay, the complete Bible. You must understand that printing press became possible during this particular time. Wycliffe's translation was in the form of a manuscript. Got it? Because printing press didn't yet arrive. Caxton didn't start his printing yet, nor did Gutenberg. Okay, so the earlier translations are all, now if you can recall, how many of you recall the first slide? What did I show you in the first slide? There was a picture, okay? There were desks, there were tables, yeah? That is called a scriptorium. Now that in the medieval period, monks sat in the scriptoriums and they scripted. They would copy down. They would go to a library, take a book, copy the entire library, entire book in days and months, okay? And then take that copied book to their own library and somebody else would copy again and take it somewhere else. So do you understand how time consuming it was? Right? Maybe.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now this is William Tyndale, 1494 to about 1536. MA from Oxford in 1515. Now while at Cambridge, Erasmus was the Greek scholar who was very famous there. So Greek and Cheek, Henry Cheek, they were the two great Greek scholars. So he was under the influence of Erasmus, and by then Reformation had entered England because Henry VIII, because of his marriages, annulment of marriages with Catherine, he broke away from the Church of England, Church of Rome. So a reformation of some kind was happening, and this was the time when William Tyndale evinced interest in translating scriptures. Now, 1526, Tyndale is the first printed New Testament in English. Only 4 copies have survived so far because it was considered, heretical, and they were burnt. So, now what are the features of Tyndale's translation? Tyndale's translation is first is free, bold, and idiomatic. I give you examples from this. You can just have a look at it. Okay, and he escaped. He could not undertake translation work in England because you all know that Henry VIII. Okay, and the problem of his what should I say, legalizing his divorce and all that was the problem. There were religious also controversies. So he escaped to Europe, and then he was strict, captured, and then he was tried for heresy, and he was convicted. He was put to death by strangling, and his body was burned. Please, most of you get it wrong here. Many people think that William Tyndale was burnt. No, Tyndale was not burnt at the stake. He was first strangulated, then only his body was burnt. He was lucky in that way because others were burnt alive. That was a punishment that was given to treason and heresy in those days. So his last words were these: "Lord, open the King of England's eyes." Now, this is a woodcut from 1563, book of Martyrs. Now, what are the features of Tyndale's translation? He was a pioneer, one thing, and then he translated from the original languages, that is Hebrew and Greek, and because of this, his influence on other translations was very great. And 80% or more of the English Bible down through Revised Version is owes to the translation of William Tyndale. Now this is from 1526 edition of Tyndale's New Testament from the British Library. Can anyone try to read this here to the left side? Maybe you cannot. You can see some words, right? The Gospel of Saint Santa.
The Gospel of
Santa
John.
John. The first chapter. Yeah. In the beginning was the Word. That kind of thing. Okay. Now Tyndale is indeed called the father of biblical translation in England. So he began from the scratch because nobody else translated from original languages before Tyndale. Wycliffe relied on what translation? John Wycliffe relied on. What did he translate from? Did he translate from Hebrew and Greek, or did he translate from Latin? Latin. And Latin was Jerome, and Latin he translated from Hebrew and Greek. Okay. Well, now then Sir Thomas More. Okay. Now, which paragraph are you reading? What do you mean by that? Which paragraph are you reading? Okay. Paragraph from what? Can you please unmute yourself and ask me that question again? Anyway. So Tyndale's influence on English language was so great, and that was what Sir Thomas More.
I'm sorry, sir. To interrupt, because I was not able to, get the paragraph in the book. I'm very sorry. I just saw it because the first century and all, I was not able to get it.
From the book, which book are you talking about?
The literature of 16th and 17th century.
Oh, you are looking into that. Okay, yeah, you can do that. But please focus here on the presentation that I'm making, right? Okay.
But I'm not able to see any presentation, and I'm only able to see you and hear you. And there's nothing else I can see. That's why I was a little confused.
Hey Baba, then what's happening here? Because many of them are able to see and some are not able to.
Because I'm able to see you only and I can hear you very clearly, but I cannot see any presentation.
Okay,
I think there's something wrong with your mobile.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody said click on pin, okay? Because see, you have to unpin me because if I am there in the center, you will not be able to see the presentation. Are you able to understand?
Yeah, I got it, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for clearing my doubt. I really am thankful to you. I got it now.
Okay.
From that time, I was just searching from the book where you are. Thank you so much.
Okay, right. Well, so, and again, I want to say this, that I'm not reading from the book that you have. Okay, so you have to, you will not find it here in the book. So that's why I'm presenting these things. You can make it, you can take a snap of it or, try to.
Yeah, I can take a
capture, yeah, right. Well, now, if you want to respond, you can unmute and respond, then again mute yourself. See, please remember this. When you want to speak to me, you unmute and speak, and then don't forget to mute yourself again, right? Got it? Okay. Now, next one. Now, Tyndale translated more than half of the Bible before he was martyred. Who is a martyr? He was martyred. According to C.S. Lewis, he was the best prose writer of his age. Popular, not literally, yet was endowed with permanent and enriched English language and thought. Tyndale's influence on English language was lasting. Now, what was great about Tyndale's translation was that he could find affinity or closeness between English idioms and the Hebrew, and thus contributed to the English language. Because, when translating, a translator doesn't merely use the words that are already existing in one's native language, but one coins new words, one introduces new concepts, new idioms, new syntax. That's how the translation of the Bible in general and that of Tyndale in particular exerted so great an influence on the development of English language. Okay? Here. Now, Tyndale emphasized feeling while understanding the scriptures. Now, he said, he thought that the true spirit, would induce one to understand things clearly. So, he insisted that scripture has one simple literal sense, and he was not bothered about the complexity because for him it didn't exist. So for him, translation was just carrying across the simple literal sense. Well, I think, this is what Tyndale said when he was talking about in Old Testament, so I'll leave out that. Now, Tyndale asks a very fundamental question. Now, St. Jerome also, can anyone read it quickly for me?
St. Jerome translated the Bible into his mother tongue, which may not we also. This will say it cannot be translated into our tongue. It is so rude. It is not so rude as they are false liars, for the Greek tongue agreed more with the English than with the Latin, and the properties of the Hebrew tongue agreed 1,000 times more with the English than with the Latin. Thomas
That will do. Thank you. I'm leaving out Thomas More. Now Thomas More, the author of Utopia, and the Lord Chancellor of England during Henry VIII time, a close friend of Henry VIII. So Thomas More is called one of the true Renaissance men. Now, Thomas More disagreed with Tyndale, but whatever it is, Tyndale raises a very fundamental question. When Jerome could translate from Hebrew into Latin, now why can't I translate from Hebrew into my own language? Okay, so that was a very fundamental commonsensical question, and my dear friends, you must understand that in those days, to translate was to incur the consequences of death. That was a very dangerous activity to indulge in. Okay. Now, second important now these you can find in your books. I'll just write this and find them. This part is there. In the page number 12. There are certain problems there. I'll just now this is the Miles Coverdale. Okay, was less scholarly than Tyndale, but he produced the first complete Bible translation, okay, in 1535. Tyndale could not do it. Tyndale could only use the New Testament, okay. Coverdale was the first complete translation, and the revisions of Miles Coverdale became the great Bibles of 1539 and so on. And he was also involved in the the project of the Geneva Bible of 1560. Now, and it was the first complete printed Bible in English. This is the unique thing about Miles Coverdale's Bible. Here, right. Now, in the third paragraph, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth paragraph, this version was called Matthew's Bible. We are referring to 1537 John Rogers. Okay, now C.S. Lewis, now I presented in my earlier slide C.S. Lewis' essay, The Literary Impact of the Authorized Version. That is an essay which, that's a lecture actually to the British Academy, and he talks about, the influence of the authorized 1611 translation on English literature. You can just Google it and just 15-20 pages there. Now, of all the translators, he was the least scholarly. Who was the least scholarly? Miles Coverdale. Among men like Erasmus, Tyndale, Munster, or the Jesuits and Dreams, he shows like a rowing boat among battleships. C.S. Lewis compares Miles Coverdale to a rowing boat, and Tyndale and others are like battleships. You can understand the comparison? Okay. So he was a lightweight. He did not have that kind of a scholarship that the other translators had, but because of that, he had freedom, and and he could translate freely without being under any pressure. This is Miles Coverdale. Then another important translation is Matthew's Bible. Okay, and this is again using some manuscripts from Tyndale, and this is the only translation which has the first apocryphal text. It includes a prayer of Manasseh. The translator actually is not Thomas Matthew, but scholars say that this was a pseudonym, a false name that he was using, actually by John Rogers, who was a Cambridge academic and also a friend of Tyndale. So Roger worked. Now actually Matthew's Bible is basically Roger's Bible, but because after Henry VIII and Edward, Queen Mary, who was a Catholic, came to power, and then she persecuted the Protestants, and that's how Rogers was burnt during Queen Mary's rule. Now we come to the official Bibles. Now the translation of the Bible was a larger political battle, not only theological, not only the controversy of the Reformation, but also political. Now the first is the Great Bible, part 1539. It is called the Great Bible not because great in any other sense, but because of its sheer volume. The size was very great. Okay, 15 by 10 inches. Okay, this was the first authorized Bible and was appointed to be read in churches. Here you can find again Miles Coverdale, who played a great part in translation. Okay, yeah. Now this is a very important Bible called the Geneva Bible. When Queen Mary came to power, she was a Catholic, so the Protestants, the Puritans were forced to leave, and many of them went to Geneva. And there they were involved in a translation. Now these are the names: 1557, William Whittingham, who was brother-in-law of John Calvin, another Reformation theologian, and now Miles Coverdale also took part in the translation. This is also called the Preacher's Bible. Now, this was the most well-known, successful translation which exerted a great influence on Shakespeare and also the Puritans who came from America. This is called Geneva Bible because it was published, it was printed in Geneva in 1560. Now this is the copy of the Geneva Bible. Okay. Here is the Psalm of David. Okay. Now quickly, some of the features of the Geneva Bible. It has copious notes. Copious means very generous notes. And first time, it introduced the system of numbering the verses. Now, if you look at any Bible available now, you will find that verse 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. You have chapters and verses. This scheme of numbering the verses was first introduced by the translators of the Geneva Bible. Got the idea? This is the first Bible with numbered verses. And well, it was the Bible of Shakespeare and Milton as well as of John Bunyan, and this was the Bible that was carried by the Puritans to the New World. What was the New World? America was the New World. Okay. Now, this is what the New World, Jamestown settlement in 1607, which is in Virginia. Okay. Plymouth, I'll leave out there. Then we come to the Bishop's Bible. Now, the Bishop's Bible were alarmed at the success of the,
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, all these different types of Bible, like you told about Geneva Bible, Bishop's Bible, so all these are the translations of the Bible that we need to write for the exam?
Can you come again?
Yes, sir. Again, I'm telling. Like we are now studying about Bishop's Bible, earlier we have studied about Geneva Bible. So
right.
All these are the different types of the translations of the Bibles that we need to write.
Yes,
all
exactly. If you are asked about the translation of the Bible, you need to write about all these. Okay?
No, numbering, sir. Altogether, how many for the long answer, how many in number we need to write?
Oh, that is being very technical. We'll cross the bridge when we come there, right? Okay? Maybe for short answers, you may be asked about Geneva Bible or King James Bible, okay? Or what was the impact of the Bible translation on English language? These could be short questions. I will come to that later. Don't worry about that, right?
All right, sir. Thank you.
Now, yeah. Now the Bishop's Bible, because the bishops, they were the ones who were involved in translating the Bible here. Matthew Parker, Archbishop of Canterbury, undertook a revision of the existing Bibles, okay, which could supersede the Geneva Bible, and this was the bishop's Bible because the translators were the bishops. Okay, and what they did was that to counter the impact of the Geneva Bible, they used a lot of other material like they supplementary material like table of contents, the chronology, lists of genealogies, maps, pictures, almanac, woodcuts, engravings, and annotations. All of them, they did all they could to make their work more appealing to the reader than the Geneva Bible. Then you collect an important Bible that appeared was, the Catholic translation of the English Bible, 1582 to 1610, which is called the Reims Douay Bible, because this is the place where, Reims is a place in France, Douay also is the place where the seminary was set up. And Queen Elizabeth came to power. She was a Protestant queen, and the Catholics were persecuted. So some of them from Oxford and Cambridge went to France, and there in the seminary at Douay, they set up base translating under the leadership of Jesuit scholar Gregory Martin, and this is completed in 1582 in Reims in France. Reims is very well known in France for the cathedral, Reims Cathedral. They did not translate from Greek and Hebrew, but they translated from the Latin. It was a literal translation, but also significant in its use of the colloquial idiom. This is Reims Douay Bible. Then we come to a very important translation. I will stop here after I conclude. This is the 1611 King James. This was a translation which took place during the time of King James. Okay, or it's also called the Authorized Version 1611. There was a need for non-sectarian translations, so the Puritans and the bishops came together 1604 in Hampton Court, and this was, Dr. John Reynolds, who was the president of Corpus Christi College in Oxford, okay, referred to the imperfections, and then they proposed to form a committee and then work out a new translation to correct the errors. Now you must understand why this is happening, because Hebrew being a very old ancient language, scholarship which evolved over the years gave them new insights about the language, about its grammar. So they could understand the Hebrew more and more, because nobody was speaking that language, okay, because it was different from the modern Hebrew, okay. So developments in linguistics and development in study of grammar helped them to come up with better translations. So there were 6 panels of translators, and these were at 3 places: Oxford, Cambridge and Westminster, and the members of this committee were drawn from the universities, okay. They were professors of Hebrew and Greek, and they were also leading divines, they were leading clergymen also. 48 to 50 of these members met. The most prominent among them was Sir Lancelot Andrews. Okay, they began the work in 1607, and if you happen to get hold of the preface, because this preface is not printed any longer in the modern 1611 King James Bible, but this preface is a superb essay about translation, why they undertook the translation and what are the problems of translation. So please read it. This is by Miles Smith. These are the pictures of Dr. Miles Smith, Dr. John Reynolds and Dr. Lancelot Andrews. Now, it's considered the best Bible that was produced because, to deliver God's book unto God's people in a tongue which they could understand, this was the intention, okay? And, Miles Smith says that we are not making a new translation, which is only a revision of, we try to make a good one, out of many good ones, we were trying to make a principled one. So it was a very humble kind of an approach. Okay? Well, now, though it's called a translation, which is actually a revision of the Bishop's Bible, and which is also a revision of the Great Bible. Okay? Now, yeah. David Crystal says that King James Bible has contributed, okay, far more to English in the way of idiomatic or quasi-proverbial expressions than any other literary source. Many of the expressions that we use in English today are actually from King James Bible, like an eye for an eye, my brother's keeper, okay, help me, and all these things. So, no other single source has provided the language with so many idiomatic expressions. 257. Shakespeare is the nearest, but the number of idioms we can confidently attribute to him is under 100. So the number of idioms that David Crystal could identify in King James Bible is 257. Please turn off your mobiles, please. Sorry, your cameras. You are, I think, distracting many others. I'll have to hide them. Excuse me, dear students, please see that you are careful with your laptops and mobiles, because you will be interfering with the classes. Who is this? Somebody, I don't know, PR. Yeah. Please stop presenting. Yeah. Okay. Now, what was the influence, or what was the impact of the King James Bible? Because it influenced and shaped a language and also the style. It provided themes and subjects for literature, because most of the themes in literature were derived from the Bible. It introduced new words and idioms. We just talked about Professor Harold Bloom and David Crystal, and also C.S. Lewis, who talked about how the translations impacted the development of English literature and also language. And when you talk about standardization of a language, because this was printed and people were listening to it, reading it, it's standardized spelling and grammar. Okay. Yeah. Are we done here? Are we clear till here? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, quickly I will move to another component, because I'll have to complete it today. We'll be dealing with the epic. Okay. This is unit 2 again. Unit 2, another concept called the epic. Okay. Well, quickly.
Excuse me, sir, is this the same question, epic, smiley, something like that?
Epic simile. Yeah. Okay, sir. This is a part of the epic. Okay, I will come to it. Okay. Please, again, your cameras and please don't broadcast everything. Okay. Okay. And epic is yeah. Now, epic is one of the major forms in poetry. Now, since this is the first year, I think it's better I talk about this. Poetry is basically divided into lyrical poetry and narrative poetry. Narrative poems, they don't describe the feeling, not that they do not, but the focus is not on the feelings and emotions, but rather than on what happens. That's why they are called narrative poetry. So epic is one of the important forms of narrative poetry. What is an epic? Now epic is now look at the, can anyone read this first paragraph?
A long narrative.
Yeah.
A long narrative poem on a grand scale, told in a formal and elevated style, about the deeds of warriors, quasi-divine beings, demigods, or heroes, incorporating myth, legend, folktale, and history.
If you focus on the words that I have put in bold, it's a long narrative poem. It's not a short poem which is into hundreds of lines, but it's a long sustained narrative poem, and it is on a grand scale. You all know what a grand means. Okay, it's not something small, and it is told in a particular style. What is that style? Formal style and elevated style. It's not ordinary colloquial kind of speech. And what does it deal with? It deals with the actions of warriors. Quasi means semi. Quasi divine beings, also called demigods, heroes, and it includes myth, legend, folk, and also history. If you look at Aristotle's Poetics, he talks about tragedy, and for him, epic was second to tragedy. And epics usually, deal with the national events of national significance because they represent the aspirations of a nation or a group of people or a community in a very lofty and grandiose manner. I gave you examples. Now, Virgil's Latin poem meaning, epic, is about the foundation of Rome. And Tasso's Jerusalem Liberata, that is liberation of Jerusalem, is about the Crusades. And Camoens' Os Lucidus is about Vasco da Gama's expedition to India. And Lincoln's Paradise Lost is about the fall of man. So, dear friends, what am I talking about here? The theme of an epic is not a petty theme or an individual ordinary theme, but something that deals with an entire nation or an entire community or an entire people. Okay? So this is something that you need to understand. There are two kinds of epics: primary epic and secondary epic. The primary epic is also known as the oral epic or the primitive epic or the folk epic. The secondary epic is called literary epic. Now, epic is one of the oldest forms because even before writing began, people began telling stories about what happened in the past. So, primary epics are those which are actually written down based upon the oral transmission of certain legends and stories. In this sense, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey are taken as the primary epics. The earliest example is Gilgamesh, a Sumerian epic. Sumerian. Some of you know the location of Sumeria, Mesopotamia and Sumeria, 3000 BC. It tells the story of the king known as Gilgamesh. And this is where you also have the story of the great flood also, which some scholars say that the flood mentioned in the Genesis, Noah, is from the Gilgamesh epic. So, Iliad and Odyssey, let me quickly tell you what Iliad and Odyssey are about. Iliad is about the Troy, the war that took place, sacking of Troy, Helen, Paris, Priam and all that. Achilles is the hero of Iliad, and Odyssey is the story about after the war, Ulysses returns home to Ithaca and the adventures of Ulysses. Odysseus is a Greek name for Ulysses, 300 BC. And primary epics also, you have the Anglo-Saxon epic, that is, you read it in English literature called Beowulf, which is around 7th century AD, and also the French Chanson de Roland, the Song of Roland, the Spanish Poema del Cid, the poem of El Cid, and the German epic Nibelungenlied, or the story of the Nibelungen. These are the primary epics. Now the secondary epic or the literary epic is, it is a deliberate attempt to recreate the primary epic. Okay? So, and it requires great, a poet who writes an epic must be in possession of great knowledge and great creativity. Invention means creativity and skill. And because epic is an ambitious product, not everybody can write an epic. In the history of literature, we have very few epics. We have many poems, many plays, many epics, because an epic is a very sustained kind of a product. Now, again, see, Virgil's Aeneid is about the foundation of Rome by Aeneas after coming from Troy. Some of you know about the Persian epic Shahnameh by Firdausi, okay? 10th century AD. It is an epic about the Persian kings. Okay? The readers of Telugu would remember the poem Firdausi. Okay? Anyone here remembers the poem Firdausi?
Yes, sir. I had it.
Okay. Now, Tasso's Jerusalem Liberata, which is about the Crusades, the 11th century historical events. Then Dante's Divina Commedia or the Divine Comedy is also a literary epic, which is autobiographical and spiritual. Petrarch's Africa, these are not there in your book, please take note of them. Petrarch's Africa is about the struggle between Carthage and Rome. Carthage is the Roman part of North Africa. Spencer's Fairy Queen, which mixes, epic, romance and allegory, and also Arthurian legends and chansons, that is the songs of French chivalry poetry. Well, now, these are the features of epic. First quality of an epic is, usually we are talking about literary epics, but sometimes primary epics also have these qualities. First is, the hero is not an ordinary person, but he is a representative, he is a type. The hero represents a great national or it's a significance, okay, national or cosmic importance. If you look at the Iliad, the story is about Achilles, the warrior. Some of you must have seen the film also, I think Troy, where I think Brad Pitt plays the role of Achilles. Okay? And Adam and Eve, now these characters are not small characters, they represent the entire nation, or in the case of Paradise Lost, the entire humanity, because Adam and Eve represent the human condition. Second, the setting of the poem is on a grand scale, which covers a wide canvas, maybe worldwide and also maybe larger, because the Paradise Lost you not only are limited to this world, but also talk about other worlds, okay? The whole cosmos. Third, obviously there are superhuman needs in the battle. Superhuman, the superheroes, I don't think in terms of the DC Comics superheroes, okay, please. Yeah, of course, they are also superheroes. Iron Man, who are the other superheroes? Batman, Spider-Man, and
Marvel.
yeah. So please, these are other people. Achilles, Captain America, yeah. Achilles, Ulysses, Satan, War in Heaven. Then, who are the principal participants in these actions in the epic? Usually you are divine beings, gods, angels, whom are participate in the action. Because the epic is narrated in a grand manner, in a lofty manner, it uses a different kind of language which is not found in other forms of poetry. That's why, you have expressions like the grand style of literature. So these are the 5 important aspects of an epic. Then the epic conventions. Now, epic writers follow certain conventions, certain what shall we say, unwritten kind of an agreed upon, rules of playing the game. Now, what are the epic conventions? Can anyone read this for me? Quickly.
Epic convention. The narrator begins by stating his argument or epic theme, invokes invocation of muse or guiding spirit to inspire him in his great undertaking, then addresses to the muse the epic question, the answer to which becomes the narrative of the epic. Sing, O goddess, the anchor of Achilles, son of Achilles, that brought countless ills upon Achaeans. Many a brave soul did it send hurrying down to Hades, and many a hero did it yield a prey to dogs and vultures. For so were the counsels of love filled from the day on which the son of Atreus, king of men, and great Achilles first fell out with one another, and which of the gods was it set them on to quarrel? Iliad Book 1.
Now this is from the invocation and also the statement of theme from Book 1 of Iliad. Now the narrator begins an argument, meaning basically he introduces a theme. What is it going to be about? What is my song about? It's also an epic theme. And there is an invocation, there is a prayer to the divine muses, to help the poet in completing his task of, writing this epic. Then there is this epic question. What is the epic question here? Can anyone tell me what is the epic question in Iliad Book 1? Here, just
And which of the gods was it that set them on to quarrel? Is it, sir?
Thank you. Exactly, that is the question. The whole epic would be an answer to this question. The whole Iliad would be, an answer to this question posed by the poet in the beginning. So this is the argument, the epic question, then the invocation, it is a prayer. Sing, O goddess, the anger of Achilles, son of Peleus. So this is a prayer to the muse. Are you able to understand? Okay? So one of the epic conventions is there is an argument, there is an epic question, and there is an invocation. Clear? Right? Okay. Now this is what you find in Milton's Paradise Lost. Can anyone read it? Anyone else can read it quickly? Of man's first disobedience.
Of man's first disobedience and the fruit of that forbidden tree, whose mortal taste brought death into the world, and all are woe, with loss of Eden, till one great man stood us and regained the blissful sea, sing heavenly news that on the secret top of earth or of Sinai, didn't inspire that shepherd who first thought the chosen sea in beginning how the heavens and earth rose out of chaos.
Chaos. Right? Thank you. Now this is Milton's first lines from Paradise Lost, Book 1, which we will be reading. Okay? We'll be discussing that later. Now, what is the poem about? Of man's first disobedience. This is the theme, right? Of man's first disobedience. Then, whose mortal taste brought death into this world and all our suffering. Then, there is an invocation. What is the invocation? Sing heavenly muse. It is an invocation, a prayer to the heavenly muse that is here in Milton's case is the spirit that on the secret top of Horeb or Sinai, the mountain, where Moses receives, sees the burning bush and also receives the Ten Commandments. The shepherd is Moses. how the heavens and earth rose out of chaos. Now the first lines, there is a prayer, invocation, there is a question, okay, how the heaven and earth rose out of chaos, and there is also a statement of the theme of man's first disobedience. Are we clear? Have I been able to explain this clearly to you?
Yes, sir. It's okay. Very clear.
Can you explain it once again?
Now see, epic convention demands that there should be an introduction. The introduction is, the poem is about man's first disobedience. There is a prayer, sing heavenly news, help me to complete this work. Inspire me as you inspired the shepherd called Moses, who wrote the first New Testament. And the story is about how the heavens and earth rose out of chaos. Okay, so this is, there is a question, there is an invocation, there is a now another epic convention is that the narrative starts in medias res. That is in the middle of things. The story doesn't begin chronologically from the beginning. Okay? It's not like the fairy tale, long ago there was a king kind of thing. No, not that. The story begins in the middle. Here in Paradise Lost, the first lines you see Satan in the burning lake. Already the war in heaven is over, he is defeated. This is how Paradise Lost begins. That is in medias res, in the middle. Actually, these events about the war in the heaven and Satan falling from heaven, they are narrated by the archangel Raphael in book 5 and 7. So this is beginning in the middle of things. Okay? Then similarly, if you look at Iliad, you find first, they are already, on the shores of Troy. Actually, the abduction of Helen and all that actually comes much before. So the story begins in the middle of things and then moves back and forth in a flashback. Then another epic convention is there are catalogs of warriors. In the case of Milton, the fallen angels are named and described in book 1. In Iliad, you have the description of the catalogs of the ships and their commanders and the other important warriors. So these are few of the epic conventions. The last important epic convention, and we'll stop there, is somebody asked epic similes, not smiles. Okay? Epic similes. They are also called extended similes. They are also called Homeric similes. Now they are sustained and formal similes. Now what is a simile? Simile is a comparison. A is like B is a simile. A is B is metaphor. So here we are not concerned with metaphor, we are concerned with simile. Now what happens is in any comparison there are two things. One is called tenor, which is the primary subject. Vehicle is the secondary subject. Okay? Now, so the secondary subject or the vehicle is elaborated. To put it simply, tenor is something that is the subject of comparison. Vehicle is how the comparison is made, that is, the secondary subject. So here what happens is the vehicle becomes elaborate than the tenor. Now I'll read out from book 1 of Paradise Lost and I'll be able to illustrate this. Now here there is a comparison. What is Milton doing here? Milton is comparing the fallen angels to the beasts. Okay? How is the comparison? He is not merely saying the beasts are like this. How are the beasts? That itself becomes an extended kind of a simile. Now as bees in springtime when the sun with chorus rise, pour forth their populace youth about the hive, in clusters they among fresh dews and clouds, fly to and fro all on the smooth and plant, The suburb of their strawberry citadel, new rubbed with balm, expatiate and confer, their state affairs. So thick the airy crowd swarmed and was straightening. Now here, I highlighted here the bees. Now the bees are like what? Okay? Now what is being compared to what?
The fallen angels.
What is being compared to what? Tell me here.
The fallen angels are compared with the bees.
Exactly. The fallen angels. Now this is the airy crowd. This is the fallen angels. They are compared to the bees. Now, from here, as bees till so thick, this is an extended kind of comparison. So your focus shifts from the fallen angels to the bees, how they are. Okay? So this is what is meant by epic simile. So you will find the use of epic simile. I will talk more about this when I will be illustrating these things when I discuss last week. Okay, I hope we are clear in here, right?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Go ahead.
Sir, what is the difference between metaphor and simile?
Just now I mentioned simile is a comparison using words like, as. She is like a rose or he is like a moon. This is a comparison using words like as and like. But if I say, now, she is the moon, that is the metaphor. Are you able to understand? If you say, my love is like a red rose, that's the simile. Okay? My love is rose, that is a metaphor. Are you able to understand?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
It's called an implied comparison. Which after that can we do typical similes in book 1, Paradise Lost? Okay. Yeah, it's already 3:30 and then have a nice day and we'll meet again.
If it is possible, can you share the presentation, sir?
Let me see. We'll talk about it tomorrow, right? You ask me, remind me tomorrow. Okay? Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you,